I remember the first time I met Marcus. It was on a crisp autumn evening in a little art gallery tucked away in the back streets of the city. The soft glow of hanging Edison bulbs reflected off the canvases, and amid the hum of quiet conversations, his smile cut through the ambient light like a beacon. Even then, there was something about him, an aura of mystery and undeniable magnetism that drew me in. I felt as if I had discovered a secret treasure, one I would cherish in the depths of my heart. For months, Marcus and I nurtured a clandestine romance that felt like our own private universe. Away from the prying eyes of friends and family, we created a sanctuary built on whispered promises, stolen glances, and midnight rendezvous in hidden corners of the city. Every secret meeting was an escape from reality, a brief sojourn where time seemed to stand still and the world outside lost. All meaning, our love was a delicate dance, choreographed in shadows and illuminated only by the sparks that flew between us. I was acutely aware that our affair was both a risk and a rebellion. The thrill of secrecy was intoxicating. Every hidden text message, every coded phrase, and every veiled invitation to meet deepened our connection. Yet, as the months passed, I began to notice a subtle change. The tender moments we once shared started to become interlaced with distractions. There were nights when Marcus's phone would buzz incessantly, and his smile would flicker with an emotion I couldn't quite decipher. At first, I brushed off my unease as mere nerves, a side effect of living on the edge of forbidden love. Our secret meetings evolved into an intricate web of late-night conversations, coffee shop confessions, and secret getaways to distant moonlit spots where the world seemed far away. In those stolen moments, I let my guard down entirely. I confessed my dreams, my fears, and the very depths of my vulnerabilities. I believed that our shared intimacy was enough to sustain us, to make our love invincible against the chaos of everyday life. Marcus, with his artful charm and the promise of eternal devotion, seemed to be the keeper of my soul. But life, as it so often does, had a different plan. The first sign of trouble came on a rain-soaked Tuesday. I had been scrolling through my phone, waiting for a message that never came, when I noticed a series of notifications that made my heart skip a beat. There were messages from unknown contacts, cryptic and flirty, and phone calls at odd hours that Marcus had not mentioned. I tried to dismiss them as harmless coincidences, perhaps remnants of past acquaintances or professional obligations. Yet, a gnawing feeling of dread began to fester within me. Over the following weeks, the subtle hints compounded into something far more sinister. I began to observe that Marcus was increasingly secretive. There were nights when he would slip away without an explanation, returning with an air of quiet confidence that left me reeling. It wasn't long before my intuition screamed that something was terribly amiss. My heart, once buoyed by the enchantment of our secret romance, now thudded with an unspoken fear, one that questioned the very foundation of our bond. Late one chilly evening, after a particularly strained dinner where Marcus's eyes wandered off more than usual, I found myself glancing at his phone. The screen lit up with an incoming call, an unknown number that I had seen before in the series of cryptic messages. The realization struck me like a cold gust of wind. My lover, the man who had become my sanctuary, was hiding a truth from me. The evidence was as unmistakable as the fingerprints of betrayal on a glass. The name Isabella surfaced in a fleeting conversation with a friend who had witnessed Marcus and a mysterious woman laughing together in a secluded corner of a popular bar. The pieces of the puzzle began to fit together in a pattern too painful to ignore. Isabella was not just an acquaintance or a passing fancy. She was a remnant from Marcus's past, a flame rekindled, casting long shadows over our clandestine affair. The discovery of Marcus's infidelity was like a slow, seeping poison. At first, it was merely a whisper at the back of my mind, a nagging suspicion that something was off. But as the signs mounted, the unexplained phone calls, The furtive glances and now the undeniable confirmation of Isabella's presence, I felt the ground beneath me shatter. Every secret meeting we had shared, every tender moment that I had believed to be exclusive, now seemed like a lie draped in the guise of romance. The betrayal cut deep. I spent nights awake, my thoughts a turbulent storm of hurt and anger. The memory of Marcus's warm embrace, once a source of comfort, now ignited a burning rage. The sanctuary that I had built around our love was now infiltrated by doubt, and the dreams I had so carefully woven began to unravel in the harsh light of betrayal. But within that storm of despair, I discovered a spark of resolve. I was not the type to crumble under the weight of heartbreak. Rather than succumbing to the agony of betrayal, I decided to transform my pain into something far more potent, a meticulously crafted plan of sweet, poetic revenge. The very idea of reclaiming my power ignited a fervor within me that had long lain dormant. I would not allow Marcus to leave me diminished and broken. Instead, I would orchestrate an act of retribution that would force him to confront the reality of his actions in the most public of ways. In the weeks that followed, I became both detective and archivist, meticulously gathering every scrap of evidence that could attest to Marcus's duplicity. Every late-night text, every coded email, every snapshot of clandestine encounters was cataloged with precision. I searched through the digital trails he had carelessly left behind, piecing together a dossier that told the full story of his betrayal. The process was excruciating. I had to relive each moment of our shared intimacy only to see it tarnished by lies. There were moments when I found myself frozen in front of my computer screen, heart pounding as I scrolled through conversation, logs, and geolocation data. Each piece of evidence was a wound reopening, yet with every painful discovery, my resolve grew stronger. I began to see the truth not as a harbinger of despair, but as the catalyst for reclaiming my dignity. I wanted Marcus and the world to know the extent of his treachery. I wanted him to feel the full weight of the betrayal he had inflicted upon me. I reached out to a friend, a confidant who had always been a pillar of support in my life. With unwavering loyalty, she agreed to help me coordinate the details of my plan. Together, we devised a scheme that would transform my private agony into a public reckoning. The plan was as daring as it was calculated. I would expose Marcus's infidelity at an event he had orchestrated to celebrate our supposed anniversary, a private dinner at an upscale restaurant that he had planned with all the care of a true romantic. As the day of the dinner approached, a mixture of anticipation and cold determination coursed through me. Every detail had to be perfect. The venue was an elegant restaurant, known for its discreet ambiance and refined clientele, an ironic stage for the unmasking of a deceitful lover. I orchestrated every element of the evening with surgical precision. With the discreet assistance of my friend who had connections with the restaurant's technical team, we arranged for a live projection system to be covertly installed in a secluded corner of the dining area. The plan was simple in concept, but required absolute precision in execution. During the dinner, as the soft strains of a piano filled the background and candlelight danced across our table, the discreet screen would spring to life, displaying the damning evidence of Marcus's betrayal. Each incriminating detail, screenshots of his secret messages, photos from his clandestine encounters, and even geolocation data linking him to his secret rendezvous with Isabella, would be projected for all present to see. I rehearsed the role of the betrayed lover over and over. In my mind, there would be no outburst of uncontrolled emotion or tearful accusations. Instead, I planned a measured, almost clinical presentation of the facts, one that would leave no room for denial or excuses. My heart was a tempest of conflicting emotions, but I knew that this was the moment to reclaim my power. I had to make Marcus feel the same shock and humiliation that had been his reward for his dishonesty. On the evening of the dinner, I arrived at the restaurant with an air of calm confidence, though beneath it all, my pulse was racing. The restaurant was already buzzing with anticipation as a small group of our closest acquaintances gathered for what was meant to be a romantic celebration. Marcus greeted me with his usual charm, unaware that tonight would mark the end of the sanctuary he had so carefully built with me. As we settled at our table, the evening unfolded as if nothing were amiss. The soft clink of glasses, the murmur of conversations, and the gentle music that floated in the background. But as the courses were served and the conversation meandered from art to literature to dreams of a future together, the carefully hidden screen was activated. In the blink of an eye, the romantic setting was shattered by the sudden projection of Marcus's hidden transgressions. The screen, previously an unnoticed fixture in the decor, lit up with evidence that told a story of deceit and betrayal. Gasps rippled through the room as images and messages unfolded before the eyes of the gathered guests. Every secret conversation, every clandestine meeting, and every piece of digital evidence was laid bare. In that electrifying moment, the carefully constructed facade of our romance crumbled before the eyes of all who had come to celebrate our supposed love. Marcus's confident demeanor disintegrated into a cascade of panic and regret. His eyes darted around the room, searching for a way to escape the humiliation, while the guests, once oblivious to the undercurrents of deceit, were now frozen in stunned silence. I sat there, a mix of sorrow and triumph swirling within me. In that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of vindication. I had transformed my deepest pain into a force that reclaimed my dignity and exposed the truth. The atmosphere in the restaurant became charged with tension. Conversations halted mid-sentence. The clinking of cutlery gave way to murmurs of disbelief and shock. I could feel the weight of every gaze in the room as they shifted between Marcus and me, silently acknowledging the injustice that had just been unveiled. The shock was not solely reserved for Marcus. It was a revelation of the truth for everyone present. As Marcus attempted to stutter out excuses and explanations, I maintained a composed silence. My expression remained unreadable, a carefully honed mask of calm amid the chaos. The betrayal that had once threatened to shatter me was now the instrument of my empowerment. I had orchestrated this moment not merely for retribution, but as a declaration that I would never be reduced to a silent victim of deception. That night, the restaurant became more than just a venue for a romantic dinner. It became the stage for a transformative catharsis. In the wake of the revelations, I realized that the pain I had endured was not the end of my story. It was the crucible in which I forged a new sense of self, a testament to the resilience that lies hidden within us all. In the days that followed the dinner, the repercussions of that fateful evening rippled outwards. Marcus, once the emblem of charm and allure, was now an emblem of deceit. The scandal had spread quickly among our social circles, igniting conversations about trust, betrayal, and the cost of living a double life. Some who had once admired him now regarded him with contempt, while I found unexpected support from friends and acquaintances who marveled at my boldness. For a time, I withdrew into myself, grappling with the duality of emotions, relief at having reclaimed my power and sorrow for the love I had once believed was genuine. The path ahead was uncertain, but I was determined to rebuild my life from the shattered fragments of our once secret sanctuary. I sought solace in writing, pouring my reflections into journals and long contemplative letters that no one would ever read. Each word was a testament to the pain and triumph that had defined those turbulent weeks. In quiet moments, I replayed the night of reckoning over and over in my mind. The image of Marcus's panicked expression, the silent shock of the onlookers, and the overwhelming surge of liberation I had felt all fused together into a memory. That was as bittersweet as it was victorious. I knew that the wounds of betrayal would take time to heal, but I also understood that the scars I now bore were symbols of strength rather than weakness. The transformation was profound. where once I had seen myself as a passive participant in a forbidden romance, I now recognized the power of my own agency. I had taken the narrative of my life into my own hands, refusing to be defined by the actions of another. In that defining moment, I had proven that even in the depths of heartbreak, one could emerge not as a victim, but as an empowered architect of one's destiny. As the days turned into weeks, I began to embrace the freedom that came with the aftermath of the revelation. I ventured out into the world with a renewed sense of purpose, determined to build a future that was unburdened by the ghosts of the past. And though the memory of Marcus's betrayal would forever linger, it served as a reminder that even the most painful truths could pave the way for unexpected growth and transformation. The restaurant scandal had become the fulcrum on which my life pivoted. In the aftermath of that unforgettable evening, every familiar face in our once shared world seemed to ask silent questions. Who was I now? And what did this new chapter hold for me? The answer, I gradually discovered, was woven into the process of healing and reinvention, a metamorphosis sparked by the flames of betrayal. In the weeks following the dinner, the fallout was as unpredictable as it was swift. Social media buzzed with rumors and half-truths, and our mutual friends were forced to pick sides. Marcus retreated into a self-imposed exile, his once bright presence now tarnished by scandal. I, on the other hand, found that the very act of exposing him had liberated me from the chains of a toxic love. Slowly, I began to reconnect with friends who had always admired my inner strength. And even those who had once been wary of our secret affair now reached out with words of support and admiration. Every morning, I woke with a renewed sense of clarity, as if the darkness that had once clouded my judgment had finally lifted. I immersed myself in work, channeling my emotions into creative endeavors that long lay dormant. I started painting again, a hobby I had abandoned in favor of. The secrecy of our affair, and found that each brushstroke was a way of reclaiming my identity. The canvases filled with colors and emotions that were raw, honest, and unburdened by pretense. I traveled more frequently, venturing to quiet coastal towns and bustling cityscapes alike, in search of experiences that would broaden my horizons and heal my wounded heart. With every journey, I discovered that the world was teeming with opportunities for reinvention. The betrayal, as painful as it had been, became the impetus for exploring facets of myself that had been stifled by the confines of our secret romance. During one such trip, a solo excursion to a sleepy seaside village, I met Elena, a vibrant woman whose own history was marred by betrayal and loss. Elena's candidness about her struggles with trust and heartbreak resonated deeply with me. Over countless cups of coffee in a sunlit cafe, we exchanged stories of resilience and rebirth. Elena's journey of self-discovery reminded me that every scar told a story of survival, and that the path to healing was often paved with unexpected friendships. With Elena's encouragement, I started volunteering at a local shelter for women who had faced similar betrayals. There, amid tears, laughter, and shared confidences, I learned that compassion and empathy were among the most potent forms of strength. I began to understand that the narrative of my life was still being written, a narrative that now featured themes of empowerment, solidarity, and hope. Meanwhile, Marcus's shadow slowly faded into the background of my thoughts. I learned that holding on to anger would only serve as an anchor to the past, and I began to focus on building a future where I was the sole protagonist. I threw myself into creative writing, penning short stories and essays about love, betrayal, and redemption. With each word, I felt a part of me heal, a phoenix rising from the ashes of a love that had once promised so much, but ultimately delivered only heartache. Yet as the days turned into months, the idea of forgiveness began to surface, not for Marcus's sake, but for my own peace of mind. Forgiveness did not mean forgetting or condoning what had happened. It was, instead, a conscious decision to let go of the bitterness that threatened to consume me. I sought therapy and joined a support group for those who had experienced infidelity, where I discovered that my pain was shared by many. In the safe confines of that group, I learned that vulnerability was not a weakness, but a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. I spent long hours reflecting on the nature of love and betrayal, understanding that sometimes the most transformative journeys begin with the willingness to face one's deepest wounds. I even found myself writing letters to Marcus, not to send, but as a way of articulating the complex tapestry of emotions that his betrayal had woven into my life. Each letter was a cathartic release, a step toward reclaiming the parts of me that had been left scattered in the wake of deceit. As the seasons changed, so did I. What had once been a narrative of victimhood gradually transformed into a story of rebirth. I began to celebrate my newfound independence with a quiet joy. I organized small gatherings with friends and kindred spirits where we shared our journeys and celebrated the strength that emerged from adversity. In these gatherings, I discovered that the community I had once longed for was not defined by shared secrets or clandestine meetings, but by the honest, unfiltered truth of our experiences. One evening, as I sat beneath a starlit sky at a friend's rooftop party, I realized that I had finally come to accept the person I had become. The pain of betrayal still lingered, but it had been transformed into a quiet power. A reminder that even when life shatters our dreams, it also offers us the chance to rebuild them anew. I smiled at the thought of how far I had come, from a woman ensnared in the web of a secret affair to someone who now commanded her destiny with unwavering resolve. Then came the day when Marcus reached out, not with apologies, but with pleas for another chance, a desperate attempt to reclaim what he had lost. The offer, however, was met with the calm conviction of someone who had risen above the wreckage of a broken romance. I declined, not out of spite, but with a quiet dignity that spoke of the new life I had built. Marcus's voice on the other end of the phone was a distant echo of a past I had long since outgrown. In the final chapters of this journey, I decided to share my story, not to revel in the pain of betrayal, but to illuminate the path toward healing. I published my reflections in a collection of essays and short stories, each piece a mosaic of my experiences, my struggles, and my ultimate triumph. The response was overwhelming. Readers from all walks of life reached out, sharing their own tales of heartache and resilience, and in that collective exchange of stories, I found a sense of catharsis that I had never imagined possible. I began speaking at events, sharing my journey with those who were still in the throes of despair. My words, once fueled by the sting of betrayal, now carried the warmth of hope and the promise of renewal. I was no longer defined by what had happened to me, but by how I had chosen to rise above it. In every story I told, in every person I inspired, I saw a reflection of my own transformation, a reminder that even the deepest wounds could give birth to extraordinary strength. As I sit here now, years after that fateful dinner, I reflect on the winding road that brought me from a secret love affair into a life filled with light, purpose, and authenticity. The memories of Marcus and the betrayal that once threatened to break me have softened into lessons about trust, vulnerability, and the undeniable power of reclaiming one's voice. My sanctuary is no longer hidden in the shadows. It radiates in the open spaces of my everyday life. I have learned that the sweetest revenge is not in the act of humiliation, but in the profound, unshakable sense of self-worth that emerges when we decide to embrace our truth. I continue to paint, to write, and to live each day with a gratitude born of survival and growth. The scars of the past now serve as badges of honor, reminders that even in our most vulnerable moments, we have the power to reinvent ourselves. And so, my story, once defined by betrayal and clandestine meetings, has blossomed into a tale of redemption, resilience, and ultimately, a new dawn. I learned my lover was cheating, and in delivering my own sweet revenge, I discovered a strength I never knew I possessed. I learned that true power comes not from inflicting pain on another, but from reclaiming your life, your dignity, and your happiness, no matter the cost. In the end, it wasn't about punishing Marcus or exposing his sins to the world. It was about shedding the weight of a secret that no longer served me and stepping into a future where my heart was free to love, first and foremost, myself. And that, perhaps, is the most exquisite revenge of all.